I've got some audio of what it sounds like out the door at the moment here at SEN. I think the salty Bulldog's got it, hopefully, in his little kit bag there. Has he got his looking at me? Yeah. You hear that?
What's that?
Well, that noise at the moment, I'll shut the window. Shut the window, Salty. That's half the competition trying to get to Reece Stanley's farm for a meeting with the Cats at the moment. What is going on? They're doing it again.
What is happening? What is happening at Geelong? Tell me. No, you give me your best go of what's happening here with Clayton Oliver and the pitch to get him, and the fact that, according to some, Clayton Oliver has got his head around joining Geelong now, and he's all in.
Look, so the fight to get to Reece Stanley's farm, I mean, Jack Martin, they've got a delisted free agent. Bailey Smith nominates them yesterday after a courtship lasting at least a year and a half, and in all likelihood a heck of a lot longer than that. And now Clayton Oliver does want to play for Geelong, and the ball, Kane, not for the first time, is in the court of Melbourne and in the days to come. Do they cut the cord on their brilliant but troubled midfielder, Clayton Oliver, and the 6-year, $1 million plus a year deal that complicates it all? I mean, it still appears to be a long shot, but the decision rests with Melbourne. I mean, it's really up to them. If I'm Geelong, I'm sitting back quietly waiting to see what happens. It's Melbourne's issue at the moment. But, geez, he's met with Steve Hocking, and as we said yesterday, if you're going to meet with the big cheese down there, Steve Hocking, shows you how serious Geelong are taking it. And if they are to get him in, you know it'll be on their terms. It'll be cut price. Yep. They won't give up a lot. But Melbourne, do they just cut the cord now?
Well, this is what I've been suggesting. I'm fully supportive of Melbourne cutting the cord now. They're not going to get anywhere near what the value was even this time last year. So maybe they erred in not pushing Clayton Oliver out the door harder last year, when you probably would have got a couple of first-round draft picks from Adelaide at the time, I would suggest, and the salary off your book. So now what's going to be, Sammy? It's going to be largely sort of Geelong sit back and wait to see how this unfolds over the next week and a bit, and whether Clayton comes out strongly and says, I don't want to play at Melbourne anymore, I want to go to Geelong. So that's probably the first thing that needs to happen before this progresses any further. And then the fact that Melbourne have now got a player that does not want to be there, they're probably hamstrung a little bit in terms of what they can get in response, because Geelong aren't going to give up much to get him. And how much salary cap are they going to take?
The only way you're doing it if you're Melbourne, surely, is if Geelong pay full freight. They have to make them pay full freight. Would Geelong want to do that? Probably not. So this is why it's all very difficult. But we spoke about this yesterday. There's been a few off-field incidents just of late with Clayton as well.
Tell me more about that. I saw this story from you yesterday.
So there's been one or two behavioural incidents. Now, I won't go into. There was an issue in and around the Brownlow medal that angered a lot of Clayton Oliver's teammates. This was behaviourally based, some senior team.
He was at the Brownlow medal?
Yep. There was some behavioural issues in and around that time that upset some teammates, some senior teammates, who, understandably, the patience is worn thin on when it comes to Clayton Oliver. In isolation, maybe not a huge deal, but after everything else that's happened, it certainly was. There's been some appointments that he hasn't kept. I think some medical appointments that he hasn't fulfilled. So, again, that upsets people. So, I guess the club's looking at thinking, we just can't go through another summer of this to some degree. Now, I think the football department, broadly speaking, this is Simon Goodwin down, from what I'm told, are backing him in. They want to keep him. They think they can turn him around, get him back to his best from a football point of view. And then you've got the CEO, the list management space saying, we need to do our due diligence here, test the market, do some talking, see what it looks like. News has obviously got out. Clayton's found out. He's taken, to some degree, matters into his own hands. They've engineered a meeting with Geelong, and now it's snowballed. And now, in the next day or two, I think Simon Goodwin, Alan Richardson, Gary Pert and others need to seriously sit down and work out exactly what they're going to do here with Clayton Oliver. And after everything that's happened at Melbourne, after crisis upon crisis, here they are, handling another one on the third day of October, leading in around the trade
How
period.
do you think they have handled it? And if you see and read and speak to any Melbourne fans, they think this has been dreadfully handled. How do you?
It's a high degree of difficulty though with Clayton Oliver. I mean, he's high maintenance. He's been high maintenance since he got there. Brilliant, yes, but tough to handle at the same time. Now, it had all been going well. You rewind to this time last year, and it all blew up because of his injury during that season, that he couldn't handle the idle time and his lifestyle got away from him. But prior to that, they'd been able to keep this as one of footy's big secrets in a way. Now, I mean, it's buyer beware for other clubs. So Geelong aren't going to. Oh, I find it so fascinating. There's
Yeah,
a million different directions to take it.
It is. I mean, if you had to guess where Clayton Oliver will be playing his football round one next year, well, where do you think? Where do you think that would be?
I think
it
it's
more
so
likely
difficult
at Geelong or more likely? I think it's still more likely at Melbourne, just
I
because of
agree.
the complexities of getting this
I agree.
done. And I mean, Geelong are hard to deal with. We know that, and that's not a criticism. That's just the fact. They do the best that they can for their footy club, and who could fault their history of doing that? So when it comes to haggling, Melbourne can't be seen to be getting nothing for this guy, and they certainly
They'll ask for a
can't.
player, won't they?
Yeah,
They've got to ask for a player,
maybe,
Melbourne.
but who? Like, so in terms of a player that would firstly want to leave Geelong, because no one really wants to leave Geelong. Jordan Clark maybe is probably the most recent example of the best one that's left, but not many leave. Who could Melbourne get to leave? I mean, they desperately need a key forward. Could you ask for Shannon Neal? It's not Clayton Oliver, is it? So you'd want a little bit more than Shannon Neal. Can you ask for Ollie Henry? No, because he specifically went there to join his brother and play at Geelong, and he kicked four in a prelim final. That's the type of player that Melbourne need. Geelong have got no midfielders. Could you ask for Sam De Koning? Well, they've already knocked that on the head. So, I mean, De Koning for Oliver would be okay. Well, that would interest me if I was Melbourne. But it's just unlikely to happen. We don't ever see player-for-player swaps in this era. And I just think it's going to become too difficult in the end, which is going to be hard for Clayton Oliver. If he's got his head around the pitch from Geelong, he wants to go and play there, which is what I heard yesterday. If this falls over, yeah, I fear for his mindset and what sort of player Melbourne will get back in return if he has to go back with his tail between his legs.
They're somewhat snookered, aren't they, Melbourne? Because the buyer beware element, all the clubs know. And the when Gary Pert did pick up the phone and ring a few other clubs, this is aside from Geelong, it's fair to say that the level of interest wasn't overflowing from a payment point of view and a draft capital exchange point of view. So Melbourne are balancing that up with, losing at one of the best players in the competition when things are going well. So it's a horrible position to be in. That's why I think you'd say that it's more likely that he stays at Melbourne. But yeah, at what cost? And where things go from here. So it's a watch, and I think that's why the trade period, again, is going to be just so fascinating.
So they had the meeting at Reece Stanley's farm to try and keep it private. Was that the
Yep.
because of all the places you go, I was like, gee, if Reece Stanley's pitching me, we're probably not the top of the tree here, is it? Like
Reece Stanley, Tom Stewart, the separate meeting with Steve Hocking and Andrew Mackey. But that's all part of it, isn't it? He's a country boy, Clayton Oliver. Get him on the farm.
Well, it makes so much sense. And Geelong, with what they are doing, just secretly. So Oliver wants in. We know that, and that's been confirmed. Whether they
Smith
get it
wants
done or
in.
not. Smith is in. Like that. That is happening. And Jack Martin, they also got yesterday with Jack Martin delisted by Carlton anyway. So I mean, anyone could have got him, but at his best, he's going to play a pretty important role. Gary Rowan's out. Jack Martin comes in if they can back their fitness staff to get him fit. Steve Saunders and the crew. And then they've bolstered their midfield, which was their biggest need. I still think they desperately need a ruckman, as we discussed yesterday, but they'll be able to pick up a bargain basement ruckman who can compete for them. And away we go again. Geelong aren't going anywhere.
You know what? You've just mentioned a player there. I want to get Salty's attention here. I want to get to an early if I was. Just a real early if I was here, Matty Donald. If I was Carlton, Kane, I'd be really hoping Jack Martin and Geelong don't make us look stupid. Now, a player with an abundance of talent. He's never been able to get his body right at Carlton, save for a sequence, I think, at the end of 2023 and a couple other little patches here and there, but largely injury prone. If the Cats are able to get all of that right with Jack Martin, and Jack Martin does what Jack Martin's always been capable of doing, it could not look worse for the Blues, I don't think. One club's trash, another club's treasure, and he becomes a star down there. If I was Carlton, I mean, we wish Jack Martin well. No one likes to see star players injured, but I would be bleeding if he makes it work.
So would I, but I'm not critical of Carlton, because at what point do you run out of patience with a player?
Sure.
Like, he hasn't played more than 20 games since 2017. He's gone 15, 16, 15, 11, 12, 13 and 3. He's about to turn 30, so you wouldn't think the body's going to get better with age. You would think it's going to get worse. So I think Carlton did everything that they can.
Yeah, they did.
And maybe you criticise their whole of their fitness department and their medical team because they've had issues across the board. But so there's no criticism here of the Blues, but I get the angst and the nervous feeling, and I saw some comments online yesterday. I bet you Jack Martin turns into an All-Australian squad type player next year at Geelong. There was plenty of those going around. If they can get him to play 18 games next year, the Cat, this is a huge win, because you're right. There was a stretch during that 2023 season where
the back end of that season.
Yeah, he looked really good, like 17 goals. He was, I thought he was presenting high up the ground, like on the wing. He was almost became a target and a connection between their ball movement from defence to forward, and he's really good in the air and he's clever. But he needs a big pre-season. But the thing with these types of players is it costs you nothing. Get him for free. Not going to have to pay him a whole lot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does work, it's Tyson Stengel-esque, isn't it?
Oh, it's just unbelievable, isn't it?
Well, firstly, congratulations to Marcus Bontempelli, the absolute superstar, for winning his 6th best and fairest with plenty more left in the tank. So what did Scotty West win? 7? I think he's going to get Scotty West by the time things are done.
1 to go.
There may be 3 more in him. Like, let's be honest about it. He may get to 9. So that's the good out of it. So he was first. Adam Treloar and Bailey Dale equals second. Liam Jones, Ed Richards, Tom Liberatore, Lachlan Bramble in 7th, Rory Lobb in 8th, Bailey Williams in 9th, and Taylor Duray in 10th. Did you notice a name missing from the top 10?
You know what? I've got the 10 here, but I haven't actually had a really good look. I'm just scanning
through.
Who's
missing. A man who signed a contract for 8 years until the end of 2032, who is probably being paid at least $1 million a season.
Yep.
His name is Aaron Norton, who continues to be the most overrated player in football. And how you cannot finish top 10 in a best... Yes, he missed a couple of games, but so did...
How many games did he miss?
It was 4.
Only 4?
Only 4, but... If you are getting beaten by Lachlan Bramble in your best and fairest, if you're getting beaten by Rory Lobb, for goodness sake, Bailey Williams, Taylor Duray in your best and fairest, and you've signed a deal until the end of 2032 and you are probably the highest paid player in that squad, you just have to be better. And I've had this thought for a while. This is a player who's been around for a while now, in the prime of his career, never even in the All-Australian squad, never won a best and fairest. And we speak about Aaron Norton as if he's one of the great key forwards in the current game. He's just not. And if he can't even finish top 10 in his best and fairest, and Duray and Williams and Lobb and Bramble and Liam Jones and Bailey Dale, who was dropped at the start of the year, are beating him in the best and fairest, then... I mean, they need to question what role they want him to play. He's got to question his influence on games and whether he's ever going to be the player that they think they've signed until the end of 2032.
So I dare say he's going to feature on your list.
He's number 2 on the list.
He's number 2 on the list.
There's one worse contract currently in football, but he would be the number 2 worst current contract in
VolKaneo for Aaron Norton. Just before we leave the Dogs, and thanks for the call, Tony, can we do... You've had a VolKaneo on the Dogs. Can we do a reverse... In the interest of balance, what's the reverse VolKaneo? Can we have a rainbow or something? Because...
rainbow.
Like, can you get a Rory Lobb rainbow?
It's not on my brand. It's not on brand.
It's not on brand, but I think it's needed. Like a Rory Lobb rainbow, who he finished 8th in the best and fairest, I think, last night as a key back, and not a key back for the entirety of the year either. We know that. And J-Dog's texting to say he got one of the biggest cheers of the night at the Bulldogs best and fairest. Now, you said, and question ongoing, could he be trusted? He can't be trusted. He was one of their best players in that disastrous finals performance. Are you now ready to give a rainbow to Rory Lobb?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think maybe halfway through the year, we were going, well, Rory Lobb's going to be one of the names we're going to be speaking about in trade radio. I haven't heard his name raised at all.
No, it's not happening.
They're probably going, well, no way. Like, Liam Jones is not a young player anymore. He's almost mid-30s. So maybe they're pretty confident that Rory Lobb can be that player that they didn't recruit him to be. They recruited him as an extra forward and who can pinch hit in the ruck. But if I'm the Western Bulldogs, this group's ready to go. There's no way I'm trading out a player who's vital to your structure and also gives you some key position depth when you are a chance to win a premiership with this group next year. So you don't want to weaken that by trading him out for draft picks. You just want to keep basically everything that you've got, and the Dogs are in good shape with their list.
Yeah, and it stands to reason that with a full preseason playing in that position, he's only going to get better from here. 207 centimetre key back, as Joe's saying, he certainly don't grow on
And we
trees.
better give some love to Jesse Hogan. Now, I'm disappointed that the Giants haven't.
Oh, hang on, just before you get to the Giants, you wouldn't have seen Luke Beveridge's speech, but it went for the better part of 20 minutes.
Shea
And
Guevara or was it,
we had Joe Green, the old NFL defensive tackle. We had the life coach, Boyd Vardy. We had mention and talk of apex predators. We had lions prowling looking for gazelles, and in football field is like a jungle. You're hunting or being hunted. You're the lion or you're the gazelle. You can survive as either, but you've got to know what fuel to use when. So we went in all sorts of weird directions.
Did we have
Bevo.
Did we have pick your best players and put them in the positions that they are best suited? Did he mention that or not?
No, that wasn't specifically addressed.
All right.
What is the list today, Kane?
So, and I want full responsibility for this list. Like the last three lists, I think it's been more combined. But
Believe me when I say I don't want to touch this with a barge pole.
But I've been sort of roped into some of your mentions on the list, and
Good reading.
got myself into trouble. I got 10. So this is the worst current contracts. And at the end of this, I'll be inducting 2 members into the Jared Pollock Contract Hall of Fame. At number 10, I've got Turnover Tim Taranto.
Is this in order, by the way?
This is in order. Yeah.
Okay, 10, Tim Taranto.
Remind
me?
Turnover Tim comes in at 10. So 7 years, they gave up pick 12 and 19 to get him. Richmond, since his recruitment, have finished 13th and last, and he missed 8 games this year. He's at 10 because he gives extreme effort, and I think he's pretty consistent, and when he plays to his maximum capability, but the recruitment of him was ridiculous at the time to give up 2 first-round draft picks for him. The contract was, and it was just the wrong time to do that. So in terms
he won the Jack Dyer medal.
Yeah, so in terms of his performance, that's fine. It was the wrong time to get him. The contract was ridiculous, and you gave up 2 first-round picks when you should have absolutely been taking those picks to the draft. So Tim comes in at 10. At 9 is a captain of a football club. In fact, there's a couple of captains that feature on this list. Jai Simpkin hasn't started his 5-year extension yet, which he signed with a year remaining on his contract at North Melbourne for what I would believe would be huge money. And you've got this guy playing half forward this year, out of position, struggling to impact games, struggling to finish. I think his ball use has been poor this year. He's a far better player when he plays midfield, and credit to him when he goes in there, he is able to have an impact. But has this group of young midfielders gone past him? That's going to be the question for Jai Simpkin in North Melbourne. And are you going to have to find a role for him to play? And I don't think it's half forward. So I'm not sure where he plays as this group of young and exciting and talented, powerful, explosive midfield comes through. Are Simpkin's attributes suited to the way that football will be played? And that is that's a big elephant in the room, this contract for North Melbourne, I reckon. It hasn't even started yet, so 5 years left remaining on that one. Another captain comes in at 8. Callum Mills signed a 6-year in 2022. He's 27. He's contracted until the end of 2029. Only 5 of his 9 seasons at the level has he played 20 or more games. Of course, he played 7 this year. He had the shoulder issue, which was the Mad Monday stuff, but he has had soft tissue struggles along the journey and issues with his body. And is he in Sydney's best 22? Like at the end of this year, yes, he was injured for the grand final, but did his performance warrant him to be in Sydney's best 22? So that's a problem when you've got a guy contracted for this long, he's the captain, and you're starting to question whether or not he's in your best side. So Callum Mills at 8.
Mm-hmm.
You're nodding along. There's no real objections here yet.
Yeah.
At 7, Brennan Cox. 6-year extension that has not kicked in yet. Brennan Cox, yeah, at Fremantle, that guy. 6-year extension, 9 games this year. They could have, well, not really. Like in terms of his performance, at his best, he's a very serviceable intercept defender. At his worst, when he's asked to play on someone like he had to with Jesse Hogan this year, he gets bullied, and he's not a good one-on-one defender. So that's a long, long time. 6 years, only 9 games this year. Once again, has had issues with his durability and his body. And he would have been one that would have got a huge price on the trade table if the club was bold enough to trade him to South Australia or to Adelaide when they were really interested in him. So 6 years left for him at number 7. At number 6, and Essendon tried to be a bit funny with this and a bit cute with Darcy Parish. It was reported to be 5, but it's really 6. And once again, the midfielders that are accumulators that lack speed and explosiveness, what is their role in the way that the game is played now? And we saw what Ashcroft did. We are seeing what Dacos is doing. We are seeing what Jason Horne-Francis are doing. These are the midfield. We're seeing the way that Hawthorn play with their explosiveness and their running power. Parish just doesn't have that. 12 games this year, couple of calf issues, which would be a concern at his age. 6 years for that contract still to come for Darcy Parish at number 6. At number 5...
Chris texted in, by the way, Darcy Parish's contract needs to be discussed as one of the most stupid contracts. So Chris isn't mucking around.
That was a ridiculous...
And a bit of defence for Jai Simpkin. Michael from Clyde. I'll jump to the defence of Jai here. Yes, I do agree. Disappointing he's been played out of position, but I feel that's been the case due to concussions at the start of the season. Simpkin found confidence towards the end of the season and attended more centre bounces. He may be a better player again going forward.
And the concussion factor, it plays right into this. The concussion factor is real, and the risk that clubs take with players who... and I haven't put Sam Taylor on this list, but it's a significant risk that GWS have taken with Taylor's extension, which I think was 7 years for big money, when he's had some really nasty concussions. So 1 or 2 more, you start to think, well, the AFL is really only going to cover us for 3 years. We're going to have to stump up the rest if there is an issue with concussion. So Simpkin absolutely plays into that. At 5.
You still haven't mentioned him. All right, who's at 5?
Jacob Hopper at 5. 2029, they gave up a first-round pick and pick 31. He's played 28 games in 2 years. He's often injured, has 5 years left on this contract, which they invested heavily in. And like Parish... are his attributes suited to the most damaging players right now? I think he burns the football far too often. He's definitely lost a little bit of speed, and that would be due to the confidence issues with his soft tissue stuff. But that's nothing but a disaster, that contract at the Tigers. Number 4 is strange, but it's Jordan Ridley because of the way that this was handled. He was already contracted until the end of 2026. And Essendon went, you know what, we're feeling generous today. Jordan, would you like an extra 3 years for no reason? Like, we'll just give you an extra 3 years to take you until 2029 when you already had until 2026. So 3 years left at the time that they gifted him this extension. He's ripped his quad a couple of times, 9 games this year. They are nasty injuries, those quad issues, and I don't suspect the soft tissue stuff is going to get better with age. So that's one of the more bizarre ones I've ever seen. Essendon, and that comes in at number 4 for that reason. At number 3, it's my man Sean Darcy. His contract hasn't started yet, would you believe? So they just chucked on 6 years when he already had 12 months remaining. So he's contracted until the end of 2030. He's played 27 games in the last 2 years. He's not a forward, as much as they're going to have to play him as a forward at times because their best ruckman is Luke Jackson, who they've also invested heavily in. 10 goals in the last 2 years for Sean Darcy. And if anyone has to have a big preseason, it's that man at Freo. He needs to come back and make a serious statement, and the pressure will start to rise on the list management and that decision. Number 2, we've mentioned him at length, but Aaron Norton has the longest contract in football, 2032, 8 years, and was beaten by Lockie Bramble, Bailey Williams and Taylor Duray in this year's Best and Fairest. So that's a disaster. And Clayton Oliver's the worst contract I've ever seen. 2030, 6 years, $10 million left. So he's the first inductee into the Jared Pollock long-term
Hang on. We need to do this proper justice. So just rewind. Give us your top 10 again.
Order,
Worst current contracts.
Oliver, Norton, Darcy Ridley, Hopper, Parish, Cox, Mills, Simpkin and Taranto.
So a couple of Tigers, a couple of Dockers, a big name dog in there, and a couple of Essendon players as well, and a decorated but troubled Melbourne midfielder. I was curious.
Who were you waiting for?
I was waiting to see whether a man who, well, I don't even know if he's still in Port Adelaide's best side, and he's got some issues, some serious issues that we don't want to make light of, but concussion issues. He signed through until the end of 2029 at the start of this year, and his name is Todd Marshall.
Yeah.
Is he a unlucky omission?
And he could probably come in at number 11, and that for those exact reasons. That was one with Todd that had a lot of interest at the time as a key forward. Hawthorn were really keen. One that, in hindsight, absolutely you would have traded away. So good pickup. I didn't have him on my list, but I should have.
Okay.
So with an asterisk at number 11.
But you're defending
comes
Connor
in
Rozee, aren't you?
Well, Connor Rozee, there's some here that I don't like. Like, I don't like Connor Rozee's deal at all. I don't like, and I said that at the time. I don't like Nick Blakey's deal, but I go, well, if it goes well for them, I can see the talent. I don't love Harry Mackay's deal until 2030. I don't. And there's some others. I don't love Josh Rochelli's deal at Adelaide until 2029. Are we certain Josh Rochelli's going to be an A grader? And they probably gave him that deal too quickly. Eric Hipwood's one I've been critical of, but you win a premiership, you go, okay, well, at least you've got that. At least he's a premiership player. Jack Payne, 20, but at least he's a premiership player. There's a lot of others that I could have mentioned, Harry Himmelberg, Josh Kelly, but they were where I landed with my 10. So can I induct my 2 newest members?
You can. Right after we do it, we set it up properly. So the new 2 entrants to the Jared Polec Worst Contract Hall of Fame.
Could have been the Brodie Grundy Worst Long-Term Contract Hall of Fame as well. Could have been at Collingwood.
No, you can't.
Not on him. Not on him.
No, not on him.
Not on him. On Collingwood, where you sign a guy for $5 million for 5 years and you're ready to trade him pretty soon.
That's a whole other radio show. That one we could fill 2 hours on how that went down.
Okay. So Clayton Oliver is in, and I mean I'll think about renaming the Hall of Fame after him. I'm not sure what the precedents are for that, but Oliver becomes the 6th member of the Jared Polec Hall of Fame. And the 7th member is Sean Darcy from Fremantle. He is straight in. You've got to factor everything in. What you could have got for Sean Darcy at the time, the fact they signed him 12 months before they needed to, the fact he's got until 2030, the fact that he doesn't play, and the fact that they've got 2 highly paid ruckmen taking up such a large portion of their salary cap. You've got to factor in all of this, and I don't make these decisions lightly, but he is very worthy of going in as the 7th member of that Hall of Fame.
You don't make him lightly. It's the Hall of Fame we're talking here. This is a serious elevation. So the Hall of Fame as it sits now, who's in the Hall of Fame?
The Hall of Famers. I'll have to just
in contract pantheon.
Yeah, Jared Polec is in. Wayne Miller was inducted at the time, so he signed a 5-year deal in 2020, had played 11 games in 3 seasons since signing the contract, had a couple of years left and has been injured ever since. Rory Atkins, Rory Sloane, and probably I'd like to remove a member that I inducted 2 seasons ago, if I can.
Okay, can you?
I think I can.
I mean, you're the commissioner, so you can do whatever you want. Who's coming out? Who's been released?
I'm going to remove Jeremy McGovern. I had Jeremy McGovern for the $5 million that he signed in 2018, and he missed 20 games in 3 seasons, and West Coast were a mess. But I think he's done enough, the All-Australian, and he's justified to. I'll put my hand up and say I got that one wrong. So I'd like to.
So he's coming
him.
out. He's coming out of the Worst Contract Hall of Fame. He's not even in the top 10 worst contracts now. So he's gone from the Hall of Fame and he's out.
He's out. He's done a remarkable job. So that leaves us
massive
with
change.
6 current members in the Hall of Fame. It's an exclusive club.